Masechus Bava Metzia Daf Ches begins with the Gemara returning to our Mishnah, and the Gemara wants to be Mechadish Halacha based on what we've seen in the Mishnah. So says the Gemara, Rami Bar Chama says the fact that we see the Mishnah says that when two people are holding a talus, and they're both claiming that they found it and therefore it belongs all to them, and the halacha is we split it because it could be that it's true that they split it, because maybe they picked it up at the same time and therefore they each should be awarded half. The fact that we say that means that in general, when somebody finds something and he picks it up with intent to be mizaket to someone else, to be kainit for someone else, that kinyan is chal. So if Reuven finds something and he picks it up on behalf of Shimon, it belongs to Shimon. He does a kinyan for Shimon. I would have a minute that can be, because we only say zachal adam shlei b'fanav. You can only acquire something as a schus for someone else, even if he's not there, if it's not coming at the expense of somebody else. But here, this is a hefker item. It's a lost object. And you're going to pick it up for Shimon. It's at the expense of everyone else. Who says you're allowed to do that? It says Gemara Kamashman, you can. Now, where do you see that in our Mishnah? It says Gemara very simply. If each of them is going to pick up the object, though the two of them will lift it together, why should it be kaina? No one actually picked up the object at all. Each one picked up only one end. The other end is lying on the floor. And even if it was picked up by the other person, so it was lifted fully off the ground. But if the other person's not being kained for you, so then it's just like it's lying on the ground, because you didn't do a hagbah, he did a hagbah, and as far as you're concerned, his hands are just like the floor. So you didn't do a kained at all. So how are you kind of half? How are either of them kind of half? And therefore nobody should be kind of anything. The only way that this could work is if each one is picking it up for himself and for the other person, in order that they should each be able to get half. That way, there is a kinyan for both of them on half. So you see, again, the fact that someone's lifting it up is picking up for himself as well as for the other person, and that's why they each get half. That's what it has to be. So says the Gemara, no, not necessarily. It could be that ordinarily when Reuven picks up something for Shimon and Reuven's not taking any part of it at all, it's not chal for him because it's at the expense of everyone else. Here, he's picking it up for himself. Since he's picking it up for himself, and the only way to do that is to also pick it up for the other guy, so here you do it. And there's a migu concept. Since he's picking it up for himself, therefore, once he's already doing a kinyan for himself, he could be kind it for someone else. Ordinarily, though, you would not say that. It says, I'll prove to you that this must be true, because look at the halacha about somebody who steals for someone else. If Reuven makes Shimon a shliach to steal for him, then Reuven is putter, because Shimon can't steal for Reuven. If he steals, it's his own maisa. However, if two people are a partner and they steal together, then they are chayav. There's machlekes rishonim if this means that one stole on behalf of both of them, or that they each stole together, and therefore it's a similar situation of doing a kinyan where the other person's holding it, so it's not a real hagbah, it's not a real kinyan. But the concept is that here, although you can't steal for someone else, if it's for you as well as for someone else, there you can. So you see this concept that doing it for you can do for someone else as well. Since you're doing it for yourself, you can do it for someone else as well, although if you do it only for him, you would not be able to. Okay, now based on this, Rava wants to say a new halacha, and we'll have 3, maybe 4 different versions as to what the halacha is before we can figure it out. Rava first says, since you say the concept of migu, since you say that when Reuven picks something up for himself, therefore it also works for Shimon. So let's say you have 2 people trying to pick up a found object, a hefker object, and one is a cheresh, one is a pekeach. One is perfectly healthy, that's a pekeach, and one is a cheresh, he's a deaf mute, and he's considered to be not a bardas. And therefore he can't do kinyanim really. He could be kind of for himself midurabanan, so that people don't fight over it. He shouldn't get into a fight because he thinks he's kind of, shouldn't get into a fight with people. So midurabanan, he could be kind of for himself, but for him to be kind of for someone else, ordinarily we say he can't. So Rava says though, if the cheresh and the pekeach pick it up together, because the cheresh is kaineh, so he could also be kaineh for the pekeach. The pekeach is kaineh as well. So the Gemara asks, how does that make sense? The cheresh can only be kaineh for himself because he has a kinyan midurabanan. He can't be kaineh for the pekeach. So who's kaineh the other half for the pekeach? He does half of it, he picks up himself, but the other half is lying on the ground, or in the hand of the cheresh, which is just like on the ground, and the cheresh's kinyan for him doesn't work. So why should the pekeach be kaineh at all? So the Gemara says, okay, we'll adjust it, we'll agree with you. The cheresh is kaineh because the pekeach picks it up for himself and for the cheresh. The pekeach is not kaineh because he picks up only halfway himself, which is useless, and the cheresh's kinyan doesn't work for him. So says the Gemara, so then what do you mean based on what we said before? What do we mean since he's kaineh? Who since what kaineh? Since who's kaineh? So the Gemara says, what we mean to say is that the kinyan of the cheresh works because if you would have 2 charashim, that are picking up for each other, then they would be able to be kind of for each other. So therefore, here also, the Pikeach could pick it up for the Cheresh. So the Gemara asks, why should this be? If you say that somebody picks up a found object for his friend, he's kind of for him because he's also kind of for himself, so that makes sense, he's kind of for himself. Here you want the Pikeach to be kind of it for the Cheresh, but the Pikeach himself is not being kind of. So why should his kinyan for the Cheresh also work? Why should he even have in mind for the Cheresh if it's not working for him at all? So Gemara adjusts again to match this. So the Gemara says, no, okay, so the halacha actually that was said is, since the Pikeach is not kaina, because like you said, he can't be kaina with the Cheresh's kinyan, therefore he does not do a kinyan for the Cheresh, and therefore the Cheresh is not kaina either. Now, if you may ask, how is it different in the case of two Charashim, that they are kaina for each other? So there, the Gemara explains, there's a takana midrabanan that they should both be kaina, so that they shouldn't fight over it. They shouldn't fight with each other, and other people shouldn't fight with them. But over here, the Cheresh is not going to fight with anybody. He's not going to assume he's kaina and be upset that other people are trying to say that he's not kaina. Why? Because he sees that the Pikeach is not kaina. If he sees the Pikeach is not kaina, he's not going to think that there's any reason that he himself should. He'll understand that the kinyan didn't work. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to Rami Bar Chama's Meinach. We just said that based on a Mishnah, you can learn that if somebody picks up a hefker object for his friend is kaina, because that's the only way they could each be kaina half. The Gemara is going to ask, which case in the Mishnah is he learning this from? The Gemara is going to say there must be an extra case in the Mishnah that we don't need, and that's why we're going to learn from there, because it's extra. And the Gemara is going to go through each of the cases to see why we need each of them until we find the one that's really extra. So Gemara first says, let's try the first case. The first case is where they both lift it up and they both say, Kul Shali, it's all mine, which we later understood means that they say they found it. So says the Gemara, what's the kasha? They're each saying it's all theirs because they're saying they picked up the entire thing. They're not saying they picked it up together. They're saying they picked it up fully themselves. So the kinyan is that they picked it up fully. So there's no reason that I need the other person to help. So the raya then can't be from the case where they each said I found it. So maybe it's the next case. They each say Kul Shali without saying I found it. So what's the chiddush of that? Why do you need that extra? So therefore, since it's not teaching me anything, it's an extra Mishnah to teach me this halacha of that somebody who picks up a found object for his friend is kind of for the friend. So Gemara says, no, there is a reason we learn from this. We already said back on Daf Beis, this is to teach me the concept of mekach u'memcher, that even though they each say they bought it instead of saying they found it, then you can have the same split. So the Gemara says, okay, so it's from the third case. One says it's all mine, and one says it's only half mine. So he's admitting that we picked it up at the same time. What's the chiddush of this halacha? That we said that you split 3/4 and a quarter. So that's just math for the same halacha as we said before. Why are we adding this? So you see, it must be extra Mishnah to teach me the halacha that Rami Bar Chama said. So the Mishnah said, 1 second, how do you know it's talking about where they found it? Maybe it's talking about where they each claim that they bought the object. And one is saying I bought the whole thing, one is saying I bought half of it. And what would the chiddush of that be? Chiddush is that the one who's moideh, that the other one who bought half of it, and he's just saying that I bought only half. So why is he admitting that half of it is not his? Maybe he has the status of a Meshav Aveda, somebody who's giving away something for free. And we say the halacha is that a Meshav Aveda doesn't have to swear. He's giving away for free, he didn't have to, and therefore he should be patur from shua. So the Mishnah is teaching me, no, he's not patur from shua in a case like that, because we think he's trying to get out of the shua. He's willing to give up half of it in order to make himself a Meshav Aveda, so he shouldn't have to swear. And he's just trying to cancel the shua, therefore he's really a liar, and we're going to make him swear. So again, that could be the chiddush. So the verse says, okay, so maybe it's from the next case. The next case is where there's two people riding on an animal, each saying that it's only mine. So what's the chiddush of that? So again, it's extra. Maybe that is to teach me the halacha here of Bava Metzia lechaveri. So says, no, maybe it's the chiddush in that also. The chiddush is that riding is a kinyan. I would not have known that. The verse says, okay, the case after that. It says, if there are witnesses that they each own half, then you can split it without a shua. So what's the case here? If they're talking about where they bought it, what's the chiddush? Is witnesses that they each bought half? No chiddush. So it must be it's talking about a metzia. And what's the chiddush that they each get half if there are witnesses that they both picked it up at the same time? Chiddush is that each one has to pick it up for the other. And on that, Rava disagrees. Rava says no, it's only because of the migo. It's only because he's being kinded for himself as well. Had he not been kinded for himself, as in a regular case of metzia, it would not work to be kinded for someone else. Okay, the Gemara now refers to the case in the Mishnah of one person leading the animal, let's say it was a horse, and one person riding the horse. So you have Again, one is sitting on the horse, one is leading the horse, and the Mishnah said he split it. So says the Gemara, a halacha, which we'll have to figure out exactly what it is. Rav Yosef said the name of Rav Yehuda. I heard from Shmuel two halachos that they are about a rider and someone who's leading a horse or an animal. One is kaina and one is not kaina. I don't know which one is which. So I'm okay, let's analyze this. What are we referring to? We talking about two separate instances, a person riding and a person leading, and you're not sure which is kaina, which is not? That can't be, because leading a horse, pulling a horse, you're kaina for sure. It's a mashicha. Pulling an animal towards you is a mashicha. That's a kinyan for sure. So if only one of these works, it's got to be the mashicha, the leading the animal, that works, and the riding must therefore not work. So that wouldn't be a shaila. So the shaila must be in a case where you have both things happening at the same time. Same horse, same moment. One person's leading it. Let's say Reuven's leading it, Shimon's riding it. The question is, which is a better kinyan? So who should be kaina it? We know leading it is a kinyan because you're making it move, you're pulling it. However, riding it is maybe it's a better kinyan even. We don't know, because you're holding the horse. You're literally grabbing it. He's sitting on the horse. So says the Gemara, can we figure this out? So Gemara says, Rav Yosef asked from a Brisa. The Brisa says, what happens if you have two people that are involved in driving a pair of animals that are kilayim? So whoever's driving the animal is chayav malchus for an iser daraisa of kilayim for sure. What about somebody who's just sitting in a wagon that's being pulled by them? He's not driving anything, he sits in the wagon. So it's a machlokes between the Rabbanon and Rabbi Meir. According to our first version of this, the Rabbanon say that he is chayiv, and Rabbi Meir says that his pater didn't do anything. Now came Shmuel, and he changed the opinions around. He said the chachamim are the one who pater. Obviously, what Shmuel wants to do is make that the rabbim should be the chachamim, because he holds that halacha should be that it's pater l'maisa. So that means Shmuel, who was the one who were trying to figure out what he said about riding and mashicha and manhig. Shmuel obviously holds that sitting in a wagon that's being pulled by kilayim, you didn't do anything, so you pater for that. So if sitting in the wagon alone, when no one's leading it, it's not considered to be like you're doing anything. So sitting on the horse, when someone else is leading it, so for sure you're not doing anything. The person who's leading it is the one who's doing the kinyan, and you're not any kinyan at all. Now, the Gemara has a kasha on this, right? Two versions as to who said it exactly. According to the first version, Abaye asked Rav Yosef, one second, now you're quoting Rav Yehuda, who said there's raya. You used to tell it to us without quoting Rav Yehuda. And Rav Yosef said, you're right, I remember now that I heard it directly, and I remember that we asked the following kasha on it. According to the second version, Abaye asked this kasha himself. But the kasha, either way, is that how could you bring a raya from riding in a wagon to someone sitting on the horse? Riding in a wagon, you're not holding the reins. You have no connection to the animal at all. Sitting on the horse, though, you're holding the reins. The reins is called a meisira. It's control over the horse. So that is much more likely that you're typhus, the horse, or you're making a kinyan on the animal. So you can't bring a raya from the fact that riding in the wagon is not a kinyan, that sitting on the horse is not a kinyan at all. And so the response to that is said, according at least to the second version by Rav Yosef to Abaye, is the reins don't make a kinyan on an object that you're finding. You're trying to find an object, and by holding on, you want to make a kinyan on it by grabbing the reins. That's not a kinyan. And we have a brisa that says that, or he quotes Edie, who says that holding onto the reins is not to make a kinyan. So it doesn't make a difference here, the fact that you're holding the reins. The Mar says also Reb Chelba said name Rav Huna, somebody who takes the reins from another person, that's a kinyan. If somebody's being a makin an animal to you by handing over the reins to you, that's considered to be a mesira, passing control from hand to hand. However, if you're taking it from hefker, either something which is lost and you're finding it, or you're taking it from Nechsi Hager, who died and has no yarshim, so there's no kinyan, because no one's giving it to you. Mesira has to be something which is given over. If it's not given over, you can't use it to acquire anything from hektish. All right, now the Gemara wants to bring a raya to the whole issue again. We had in the first Mishnah, we had a case of two people that are riding on an animal, and they're both claiming it's all theirs, and the halacha was we split it. It says, Gemara, who is the Tana of this Mishnah? Is there Rabbi Meir who says that riding is kainer? If so this is the same as any other case, the same Mishnah and Metalis. Why do you have to say this case at all? So it must be it's the Rabbanon. The Rabbanon who said that sitting in a wagon is not kainer. And the Rabbanon are teaching us, although sitting in a wagon is not kainer, riding on a horse is kainer. And therefore it's a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yosef, who wanted to bring a raya from sitting in the wagon that it's not kaina to riding on a horse, that it's also not kaina. You see, it's clearly not daima at all, because the Rabbanan must hold sitting in a wagon is not kaina, but riding on a horse is kaina. So answer is no, not necessarily. There's two ways to ride a horse. You could ride a horse just by sitting on it, in which case Rabbi Yehuda is bringing a ride from sitting in a wagon. Since sitting in a wagon is not kind of, sitting on a horse is not kind of. Mishnah here is talking about something else. The Mishnah here is talking about when you're driving the horse with your legs, he's squeezing it and he's making it move. That's like a Mashicha. And that type of kinyan is kind of. So we're asking, that's what the Mishnah is talking about. So what's the difference between that and leading the horse? Either way, you're moving the horse. What's the difference if you're leading it by pulling the reins, by pulling a lead rope, or you're leading it by sitting on it and driving it? Versus, no, there is a chiddush, because you may think that the one who's riding it is doing a better type of kinyan, because he's not only making it move, he's also holding it. And therefore, it should be better than the one who's leading it. Therefore, we mentioned both cases, both the case of leading and the case of riding, to show that it's the same type of kinyan, and neither one is stronger than the other.